Welcome to the UIAAA Connection podcast. The UIAAA would not be able to broadcast this podcast without the support of our business partners. Thank you to all of the gold and silver business partners of the UIAAA, BSN Sports, and our contact, Jeremy Macy. Final Forms, AMP, with contacts Julie Renner and Clay Burnett. Granite Canyon Wealth and our contact, Megan Palazzo. Jostens and our contact, Molly Shaheen. NCSA, Next College Student Athlete, and our contact, Paul Putnam. VNN Varsity News Network and our contact, Jason Jones. Thanks again to all of the gold and silver UIAAA business partners.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection podcast. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today's guest is Michael O'Connor, CMAA, Director of Athletics at Westlake High School. Welcome, Michael. How are you today?
Doing great, Hutch. Thanks. Appreciate you having me.
Tell us, since I mentioned you're a CMAA, you recently received that, I think within the last 6 months. Tell us how that process went for you, for our listeners out there in Utah and across the nation.
Well, I had been working on a way to collaborate with our coaches. And so when I was in high school, I was part of what they actually called the class symposium. And it was a combination of history, English, credit, and so I was trying to look for a different name, and that name just kept coming. So I just started calling it our Coaches Symposium, and it stuck. And we just started building with book reads, with what is our culture going to be? What do we want to be? And it all came about because of all the different courses that I took, and was like, the more classes you take, the more you learn, and the more you want to improve and be better. And so that's how it evolved, and that became my project. And I was fortunate enough to be one of the first people when they started doing it via a Zoom and so forth. And it was a great experience, and we're going strong. It's a continuing project that we do monthly and each year, so it's been really good.
That's excellent. And so you chose the oral route rather than the written route.
Yes, and it was great.
Okay,
it was just great. It was great to have 6, 7, 8 people in just communicating and talking and sharing, and I thought it was a great experience.
Excellent. Okay, well, let's to give our listeners an idea of who you are and where you came from. Just give us a quick background, where you grew up, where you went to college and what high school, maybe your path in athletics as a youth,
No, that's awesome.
As an early teen.
Yeah, I was born in Syracuse, New York. So, and back in the day, and when families were going west, my parents decided to move west to Southern California, and so that was when I was 8, and so I grew up in Long Beach, California. Went to Long Beach Wilson, was part of a league that had Long Beach Poly that a lot of people know about that high school.
Is Milliken in that league also?
Yeah, so it was Lakewood, okay. Milliken, okay. Poly, Wilson, Compton, so Jordan. So yeah, it was a fun place to grow up, riding my bike to Seal Beach. Then there was a riverbed right behind my house. We'd all hop on our bikes and we'd go to Seal Beach. And
how close to Signal Hill was your home then?
Actually, Signal Hill was a little farther away. We first lived right below Signal Hill, and then we moved over when my parents got a house, we lived near Long Beach State, right over by Long Beach State. And so I went to Hill Junior High, and then Long Beach Woodrow Wilson High School, and A fun place to grow up. I enjoyed it.
And from there, you went to college where then?
I went to Long Beach City, and then after serving a mission and finishing Long Beach City, I ended up going to BYU and loved my time there. Got to my bachelor's and master's there. I always knew I wanted to be a PE teacher. Had an awesome 7th grade teacher, Mr. Hassan, and full of energy. And I just knew that that's kind of where I wanted to go. And so I went right in, got my thing, and then started coaching. I student taught at Mountain View High School and coached there for 3 or 4 years before I moved to back to California. I was at Bellflower High School for 11 years, and where we have a common acquaintance.
Oh, well, okay. Go into that a little bit, because it's a fascinating story.
Yeah, I coached Odessa Jenkins. She was at another school and then came to our school. She actually lived in basically South Central. Her brother was shot by gangs and killed. And little Spitfire, about 5, if she's 5'3", 5'4". But she was my point guard for 2 years and ended up going to San Luis Obispo, was the Big West newcomer of the year. She just an awesome girl. And now she's a major player and leader in the women's football in Texas.
Which is where my connection. I coached against her actually with the Falcons. And we had won 2 consecutive championship games and then lost that third championship game. And I'll tell you what, she's the real deal. I mean, she can play. Super
proud of her. And in a cool story is I moved here to Utah, and it was in May, and next thing I know, I got a phone call, and I'm like, "Hello, Odessa, what are you doing?" She goes, "Coach, I'm walking down the aisle at graduation, and I just wanted to say thanks." And you could just hear the crowd, and it was just a cool moment with her, and just to be able to just share a little of where she's headed and what she's done for herself. So,
well, those are the moments. Those are the moments that you can't, as a person in coaching, you describe it to other people, but unless you live it, you just don't know that a person's life.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember taking her home to South Central and was on this little street and was a dead end, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, Odessa, I don't know if I should be here." She goes, "You're okay, Coach. You're okay." And a few years later, we were out to dinner, and she said, "You remember when you took me home and you said that?" She goes, "All the gang people came over to my house and said, 'Who is that?' And and she said, 'That's my coach.' And they said, 'Okay, well, he's safe whenever he's around here because we know he's taking care of you.'" So, yeah, you find out stories like that later.
That's crazy. And so how was, you talked about one of your mentors, your 7th grade teacher. So from there, and you got into coaching. So then how was your path from coaching to athletic administration? How did that happen?
Yeah, I wanted to, at a time you've coached long enough and when I grew up, I played everything. I think all of us, we just used to play everything. When the back tire of a car was first base, the manhole was second base, the curb was, yeah. And so I grew up playing a lot of everything. And I don't know, it just seemed like it's some point as I was coaching and was like, "Hey, I'm ready for this." And so I was the assistant AD for the first year Westlake was open under Lou Andrus, a super guy. And
Former president of the UIAAA.
Yeah, and so I was his assistant AD the first year, and he helped open the school, and then after the first year I took over, and that was kind of the plan, and I really didn't know what I was doing, to be honest. And it was like our principal and Lou, hey, we need to go to the AD conference. So I went to my first one, and I didn't know. And then as I took a class, and it still seemed somewhat casual the first few years because I just didn't know enough. And then I just kind of dove in, and that's where I'm at. And it was the best thing I could have ever done for me as an AD. It's made me a better coach. It's made me really think about what we do and try to do. And I've been lucky enough to be around all of you and learn and grow. So, and that's where I'm at now.
And so share with our listeners what it was. So you became the AD, and like all of us, we found out real quickly we don't know what we don't know. And the fire's all around you. You start taking courses, you take that route, you get involved with the state association. And then, so what was it that clicked the switch for you and decided, I think I'd like to lead the UIAAA someday. I'd like to throw my name in the hat to be the president. How did that happen?
Well,
because you got to remember, because when I was president, that's 23 years ago. I mean, I'm an old guy. You're still fairly young. So how did that happen?
Ricky at Lone Peak was on deck, and he wasn't able to fulfill, and he asked me, hey, Mike, why don't you do it? So that really sparked being on ADEC for the first time, kind of seeing how things are going and how things run, and just getting involved. That was a big factor. And and then you always wonder, I mean, how involved does someone want to get? And at some point at that time, I just like, hey, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And be involved as much as I can. And it just kind of led me to the path that, being in ADEC for 5-6 years is like, hey, it's time. I mean, and I actually lost the first time, and I think you guys had to count the ballots multiple times, but it really isn't losing because we have such good people. I mean, if you don't get it, if you're not the president, you're going to have your chance. And that's what leading's about. You can be a leader, whether you're the president or whether it's just your school or so forth. And so it's just been kind of a, baby steps or a stepping stone. You do one thing, the classes, you learn, you grow, and then all of a sudden that opportunity presents yourself. And going to my first conference in Orlando, remember I did that at the very last second and booked everything, I think, on Expedia. I did it on my own. And my principal said I could go at the last second. So I just kind of did it. And I haven't missed one since. So
since you mentioned that your first conference, I know my first conference was way back in Nashville in the 90s. And I just remember thinking, my goodness, I had no idea. And so I'm wondering what your feelings were once you got back from your first national conference.
I already knew then that I'll go to everyone from that point on. I mean, I was in awe, and kind of someone who took me a little under his wing, Craig Gladwell. We ended up after that, we were like rooming buddies for the next 3 or 4 until he retired. And, it's been, I just was in awe of everything, and you just want to soak it up. And being a part of whether it's a class, a workshop, or the big, the dinner, the opening sessions, and it just overall, you couldn't ask for a better experience in your profession.
All right, thanks for sharing. I know you mentioned your project for your CMAA, but are there Westlake's still a newer school? Newer, that's probably what, 10 years now, or even more, longer.
10, yeah, it's our 11th, yeah.
But maybe if you have any other best practices at your school that you wanted to share, or problems that are tough to overcome being a newer school.
Well, I think everyone deals with turnover of coaches, and I think when you can keep coaches, and we can't be necessarily in the profession to be firing coaches, we got to help them. Just like ADs help each other, we got to help our coaches and provide them with as much. And that's an ongoing, especially with, you have new and old and mixing them, and our symposium, that's what's helped, because it is a collab. It isn't just me, it's all of us talking and all of us sharing, whether it's in a book, through a book read, and we even do best practices as part of that. So we'll ask a coach to share. If we know that that coach is doing something really good, maybe it's practice plans, and we'll have that coach share what he does for his practice plans, or what this coach does to follow academic progress, and so we try to get them to talk to each other and so forth. But that's an ongoing thing. I think we all deal with parents and how we can address parents and coaches and athletes. That can be ongoing. And our biggest thing was culture to start. What did we believe in? And that was kind of the start of the project. And I think I came home from a meeting it might have been a national conference or one of our state, and I went right to our assistant principal over athletics and just said, hey, I want to do this because we have no direction of where we want to go. And so that's ongoing. Now, what has occurred because of it? Well, the UIAAA sponsors the state academic champions, and we, in the first 2 years, we won 13 of those for 6 days. And
that's impressive. That's really impressive.
And not because of, and that in our lead up to our culture, part of our thing was, what kind of kids do we want to have playing? And it's really transformed some of our teams from being teams not very sound academically to, now every one of our teams is really sound. Kids they can't miss class. And so you have to find a way to there's a lot of different ways to win and to be successful. And what it's doing is it's actually improving each of our sports. We're in a really tough region, and
absolutely,
but I think when you look at us, we have risen. Once you get to the tournament, I think our team, we have a lot of teams that have a chance. And
sure.
And so we've built we tried to build from the ground up, and academics is part of that. And,
all right, great to hear. Thanks for sharing that. Tell our listeners out there, what's the favorite part of your job? Because I know there's some least favorite parts. You already mentioned with parents and that type of thing, but what's the favorite part of your
job? Just being around the kids, being around our coaches. And it was funny, yesterday, I told a group of our coaches, we were just chuckling and talking, and I just said, hey, I'm trying to be a kinder, gentler O'Connor. And they all just started laughing. And, and I was able to be a part of the desire to lead with Jeremy Boone with 20 of our kids. And that experience alone, those kids are now thirsting for more. And it was pretty awesome to be a part of that. And they're all excited to be a part of it again in April because they get to be mentors to a new group of kids. And I actually had a parent come to me and say, he's missing that, and we could see a change in him. And now it's like he wants more. And so it's been really good to see kids, trying to make more connections with our kids. It has actually been a lot of fun.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that answer. So I want to get to 2 points. One specifically as the president of the UIAAA. Talk a little bit about our conference coming up April 14th to the 17th, because I know it'll be a whirlwind for you and you'll have a big sigh of relief when it's over. But of course, with this COVID mess and what we went through last year.
It's been obviously a year that's different. And but I'm excited for April and where we're headed. A chance. I mean, even the small conference we had in August, how good it was to be around people, and it'll be great in April. And we have LTC courses that are being offered. We have 6 of them. That'll be great for those. We have the typical law ones, as well as we have our 706 coaches taught by Rich, and he's one of the founders of that course. And so, and then our workshops that will be dealing with current issues and so forth. So it'll be a great opportunity to be around everyone again, and an opportunity to learn and grow.
And had something new, I think, to the conference this year, Friday morning, because not everyone chooses the Healthy Lifestyle Golf Tournament, but we're instituting, of course, we borrowed it from the NIAAA, the Talking and Training. How do you see that going?
I think that's a great chance because we have it divided into classifications, kind of the small schools and larger schools, and they get a chance to come and if no one's been to a talking and trading session before, we just have a list of maybe current issues in your classification and things that as a table you get to talk about them and interact and get best practices from each other, or even learn something new that someone else might be doing. In the topics can vary, and it may even evolve into a new topic just from your table discussion. And so those that we have leading that, they've been to those, and it's a great chance. I think it's great, especially if you're not playing. It's something you won't want to miss.
Well, that's great. It sounds like it's something I think we haven't offered, that specific type of exchange before at our conference. And the second thing I wanted to go in here while we still have the time, talk to our listeners, both in the state and nationally, about the NIAAA cohort. Now, I know you were in the second cohort along with Trevor, and I know Jamie, who's our LTI coordinator, I think was maybe one of your mentors and was in the first one. But this is something that's new at the national level, and I don't know that we've got a cohort in Utah yet, but we've started our mentor plan, and hopefully I can get Trevor Wilson on one of these podcasts to talk about it. So talk about your experience in the cohort.
The national cohort, and there was 2 cohorts this last time, and ours it consisted of 12 ADs from across the country, and then 4 mentors, Becky, Moran from the Chicago area, was Daryl Nance. He's kind of the founder of the cohort. Bruce Whitehead was my mentor in the cohort. So it was a great opportunity. And the way this cohort worked is each month, one of us were the teachers of the topic. and then we had a writing prompt, one a month, on a variety of topics. And obviously COVID and the current issues of the day, diversity were major topics, particularly in the spring. And so it was an opportunity to be with people, learn from other ADs. And we had ADs from New York, South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Texas, Chicago, Indianapolis. It was just, it was awesome. And it just ended. And, kind of our ending was supposed to be at the conference, but they're going to have us be guest speakers for the current cohort that's just starting. So we'll have a chance to be involved with the current cohort and then get to be together in Denver and next December. So the opportunity to learn in that format was really good, and it led to other things. I spoke in what's called a UIAAA Wednesday. That's the state of Washington. Their ADs meet every Wednesday on Zoom. And so I think it was me, Trevor, and Ryan were guest speakers because we were full activities here in the fall in Washington and California. They haven't done anything yet. So we were guests. We were guests, and they were asking us questions, how we're doing it, what we're doing. And some of the experiences because of the cohort, I was on a webinar for AD Insider. I spoke at the AD Insider virtual national coaches clinic in December. And it was all because of the cohort and the learning and growth from it. If you're a CMAA, it's another phase, another step to grow and learn. And I would definitely encourage, if you're a CMA, if you have a chance to get in a cohort, to do it.
Great, thank you for that answer. Let me just reiterate one of the points that you talked about. I think you explained it very well, but I think there's no other experience like it. I've had that experience on numerous occasions. The ability to network with athletic administrators from around the nation, different states, different sections, different cultures, different way of life, and possibly here in a nice conservative Utah. I don't think you can undersell that. I think you spoke to that very well. I'm hoping that our listeners, both in the state and both nationally, if they get that chance, would take that opportunity, because I know when speaking with Trevor, and I was speaking with Jamie, who went to the first one, and of course, the information you just shared with us here, it sounds like it's an incredible deal. And of course, I've known Daryl, who is the cohort king, so to speak. I've known Daryl for, oh my goodness, close to 15, 20 years. And, a great leader, and great to be able to share that. Okay, so we're near the end of this podcast, but before we let you go, I like to take this question that I stole from Dr. Jake Von Sheer in Florida when I was on his podcast. And so I know I told you 3, but I want you to narrow it down. If you had 2 things that you could share with a newer AD, it doesn't have to be a first year, so maybe an AD, an athletic administrator in the first, second, third year. If you had 2 things that you could say, these are a must, these are the things that you need to do, it's going to make your life easier, what would those 2 things be?
I think the first one is connect with the ADs, every AD possible. The more connections and networking you can do, it makes sure that kind of knowledge is invaluable, and especially the friendships that come from that, and the kind of that growth. You can't can't get it anywhere else. And so I connecting with each other is huge, and then dive into the courses and dive into being involved with the UIAAA. And if you have a chance to go to the NIAAA conference, to go to that. The more you learn, you can't be afraid to learn. And we make plenty of mistakes. And I mean, I've shared with our coaches that if we don't want to learn anymore, I mean, you can't, it's pretty tough to get better at what you want to do. And I think the more we can learn, the more people we can be around, it will make your experience as a new AD a little easier. It's always tough at the beginning, but connect and learn. That's what I would encourage.
Great ideas. Thank you so much for sharing. Once again, our guest today has been President of the UIAAA, Michael O'Connor, a certified Master Athletic Administrator. We'd like to thank you again, Michael, for taking the time to be with us, and we hope that our listeners join us next time on the UIAAA Connection. Thanks.
Thank you, Hutch.